I have pulled the engine out of more Silverado 5.3-liter engines than I can count, and almost every single time when I ask the owner how long they noticed something was off before they brought it in, the answer is the same: a few months, sometimes longer. That window between the first sign and the moment they finally showed up at my shop is exactly what turned a $400 fix into a $5,000 nightmare. Today, I am walking you through 5 early warning signs that your 5.3-liter lifters are starting to go before you ever hear that death tick. Let me give you quick background on why this engine has this problem, because understanding the cause is what makes the warning signs make sense. The GM 5.3-liter uses a system called active fuel management, also known as AFM. The idea was fuel economy. In light driving conditions, the system deactivates 4 of the 8 cylinders by collapsing the lifters on those cylinders, allowing them to float without actuating the valves. On paper, this saves fuel. In the real world, this is the reason you are watching this video. The AFM lifters have a complex internal mechanism with small oil passages, a collapsing pin, and a spring. They depend entirely on engine oil being clean, properly pressurized, and at the right viscosity. When any one of those conditions slips, those lifters start to fail, and they do not fail quietly. They fail in a way that, if ignored, sends metal debris through your entire valvetrain and sometimes into your oil system. The repair bill at that point is not $800. I have seen full AFM lifter failures with valvetrain damage run $4,500 to $6,500, depending on whether the camshaft needs to go with it. The good news is this engine almost always tells you what is happening before it gets that far. You just have to know what to listen for. The first warning sign is an intermittent ticking noise on cold start that disappears after a few minutes. This one gets ignored constantly because it goes away. The engine starts cold, there is a tick from the top of the engine, and then after 2 or 3 minutes of warm-up, it is gone. The owner figures it is just normal cold start noise and moves on with their day. I understand that logic. But on the 5.3-liter with AFM lifters, a tick that shows up cold and clears with warm-up is not normal cold start behavior. It is your lifters telling you the oil passages inside them are struggling to pressurize properly. Here is what is happening mechanically. When the engine sits overnight, oil drains down from the top end. On a healthy 5.3-liter, oil pressure comes up within seconds and fully lubricates the valvetrain almost immediately. On an AFM lifter that is beginning to fail, the small internal oil galleries are starting to varnish or become partially obstructed. They take longer to pressurize. During that window, the lifter is ticking because it is moving without adequate film pressure. It gets louder when cold because the oil is thicker and the passages are already partially restricted. It clears when the engine warms up because thinner oil can push through those restrictions more easily. The mistake people make is treating the disappearance of the noise as proof that everything is fine. The disappearance of the noise is proof that the restriction is not yet bad enough to cause a permanent problem. But that restriction is still there, and every cold start, it is getting a little worse. The window to address this without major damage is while it is still intermittent. Once that cold start tick becomes a tick that stays, you are past the early warning phase. What to do at this stage? Check when your last oil change was. If you are beyond 5,000 miles on conventional oil or 7,500 miles on full synthetic, change it now. General Motors calls for Dexos 1 full synthetic in these engines, and that specification exists specifically because of the AFM lifter sensitivity. After the fresh oil, pay close attention to whether that cold start tick returns and how quickly it clears. If it shortens noticeably, you caught it early. If it does not change, you are further along in the failure progression than just contaminated oil. The second warning sign is a drop in oil pressure at idle that was not there before. Most owners glance at their oil pressure gauge occasionally and never track it with any precision. That is a mistake with this engine. One of the earliest mechanical signs of active fuel management lifter wear is a change in idle oil pressure, specifically lower readings than the engine used to show. Here is why. As active fuel management lifters wear, the small internal sealing surfaces degrade. The check balls and pins inside the lifter body that control oil flow start to leak past. This creates internal bypass where oil is bleeding off inside the lifter assembly rather than building pressure in the system the way it should. The oil pump is producing the same output it always has, but oil is going somewhere it is not supposed to go, and the gauge drops. On a healthy 5.3, you should see oil pressure in the range of 25 to 40 pounds per square inch at idle when fully warm. The exact number varies by vehicle and condition, but what matters is your baseline. If your gauge used to sit at 35 at idle and is now consistently sitting at 22 to 24, something in that oiling system is losing pressure. With the mileage profile, where this typically becomes an issue between 80,000 and 140,000 miles, AFM lifter bypass is the first suspect. What makes this warning sign dangerous is how easy it is to rationalize. Owners see a lower reading and convince themselves the gauge is off, or the sending unit must be going bad. I have had Silverado owners replace 2 oil pressure sensors before they finally let me put a mechanical gauge on the engine and confirm what was happening. Do not replace the sensor to fix a real pressure problem. Use a mechanical gauge to verify what the sending unit is telling you before you dismiss it. The third warning sign is a fuel economy drop you cannot explain. This one sounds financial, but it is entirely mechanical. You know roughly what your 5.3 gets at the pump based on your driving patterns. When a driver tells me their truck has gotten noticeably worse on fuel over the last 2 to 3 months and nothing else has changed, active fuel management lifter health goes on my inspection list immediately. Here is the connection most people do not make. The active fuel management system relies on lifters that can fully and cleanly collapse to deactivate those 4 cylinders. When the lifters are healthy, the system transitions in and out of 4-cylinder mode smoothly, and the engine control unit can use that deactivation aggressively during steady highway cruising, which is where most of the fuel economy benefit comes from. When the lifters begin to fail, the engine control unit gets feedback that cylinder deactivation is not happening correctly. It either disables active fuel management entirely, pulling all the fuel economy benefit out of the system, or it deactivates partially and inconsistently, causing the engine to run less efficiently than either clean V8 or clean V4 operation. A truck that used to get 21 to 22 miles per gallon on the highway and is now consistently getting 17 to 18 with no change in driving habits or tire pressure is worth investigating. This sign almost never shows up alone. If you are seeing a fuel economy drop, go back and ask yourself if you have also noticed any intermittent cold start noise or any idle pressure changes. These signs layer and compound. When you start seeing 2 or 3 of them at the same time, the lifters are communicating clearly. The fourth warning sign is a misfire code, specifically on cylinders 1, 4, 6, or 7. These 4 cylinders are the AFM cylinders on the 5.3 liter. They are the ones that get deactivated when the system is active. If your check engine light comes on and you pull a misfire code, the cylinder number matters enormously on this engine. A misfire on cylinder 3 or cylinder 5, which are not AFM cylinders, sends you down a completely different diagnostic path involving spark plugs, coil packs, and injectors. But a misfire code on one of those 4 AFM cylinders, especially combined with anything else on this list, is a significant red flag. What happens with a failing AFM lifter is the lifter begins to either partially collapse when it should not, or fails to fully open when the cylinder is supposed to fire. In either case, the cylinder does not produce the combustion event the ECM expected. The NOx sensors and oxygen sensors detect that an expected power pulse did not happen correctly, and the ECM logs a misfire. This misfire may be intermittent at first, appearing under light load during highway cruising when AFM is most active, and disappearing under heavy acceleration when the system is fully disabled and all 8 cylinders are firing at full lift. If you pull codes and find a P0301, P0304, P0306, or P0307 on a 5.3 with mileage over 80,000, do not immediately start swapping ignition components. Those parts cost money and they will not fix a lifter problem. First, confirm the plug and coil on that cylinder are in good condition. If they are fine and the misfire returns, you need a leak down test on that cylinder. A cylinder misfiring because a lifter is not opening the valve fully will show poor sealing on a leak down. That is your confirmation. The 5th warning sign is the one that ends the careers of 5.3-liter engines when it gets ignored. It is the loud, persistent valvetrain tick that does not go away with warm-up. Warning sign 1 was the intermittent cold start tick. That is early stage. This is different. This is a tick or rattle that is present when the engine is fully warm at operating temperature under normal driving conditions. It may be louder at idle and quiet down slightly at higher RPM, or it may stay consistent across the rev range. Either way, when the tick is no longer clearing with warm-up, the internal mechanism of one or more AFM lifters has progressed from restriction and partial failure to actual mechanical damage. At this stage, the collapsing pin inside the lifter body has either seized, broken, or the lifter body itself is beginning to spin in its bore. A spinning lifter loses the anti-rotation feature that keeps the flat base aligned with the camshaft lobe. When a lifter spins even partially, it contacts the cam lobe on an edge instead of the flat surface. What happens next is fast and expensive. The cam lobe wears through, sending metal particles into the oil. Those particles circulate and embed in bearings, oil passages, and other lifter bores. What started as a single failed lifter becomes an engine that needs a complete top-end rebuild and sometimes more. I have seen owners drive on this tick for 3 weeks because the truck still started and moved under its own power. By the time it came into my shop, the camshaft was damaged on 3 lobes, 2 additional lifters had begun to fail from contaminated oil, and the repair was $5,800. The owner told me he noticed the tick about a month earlier but figured it was not urgent because the truck was still driving fine. That tick cost him $5,400 more than it would have if he had brought it in the week he first heard it. Stay through warm-up. If you have this tick right now and it is not going away with heat, this is not a wait-and-see situation. Stop using the truck for anything beyond essential short trips and get it diagnosed this week. Every additional hour of runtime on a mechanically damaged lifter is widening the repair bill. Here is what connects all 5 of these signs. The engine is not hiding what is happening. What makes these failures expensive is not that they are difficult to detect. It is that owners talk themselves out of taking action because the truck is still running, still starts every morning, still pulls the trailer, still feels mostly normal. And that is the exact trap the AFM system sets for you because the failure is gradual enough that the new normal creeps up on you a few weeks at a time until the new normal is a repair estimate sitting on your passenger seat that has 5 digits on it. If you are hearing a cold start tick, check your oil condition and service interval immediately. If your idle oil pressure has dropped, put a mechanical gauge on it before you replace any sensors. If your fuel economy has fallen off, pull your codes and look at which cylinders are involved. If you are seeing misfire codes on AFM cylinders, do not swap ignition parts until a leak-down test rules out the valvetrain. And if your tick is staying through warm-up, stop putting it off. The 5.3 is a genuinely strong engine when the AFM system is healthy and maintained. It rewards the owners who pay attention early and punishes the ones who wait. Now you know what to listen for. The next move is yours. If this saved you money or helped you catch something early, hit subscribe. I put out videos like this every single week, breaking down the problems dealerships hope you do not know about until it is too late. Drop a comment below and tell me what your 5.3 is doing right now. I read every single one. Drive safe, take care of your truck, and it will take care of you.